The city never sleeps, but it does watch, and tonight it watches a 14-year-old disappear into the dark. Sirens echo between brick towers as neon bleeds onto wet pavement, and somewhere in that noise, a childhood quietly ends. In New York City, this is how stories like his begin. He grows up in public housing where elevators smell like urine and hope feels temporary. His apartment is crowded, loud, and tense, shaped by unpaid bills and adults too exhausted to notice silence. Outside, the streets offer structure, attention, and rules that seem clearer than anything at home. School becomes a place he attends in body, but not in spirit. Teachers rotate, classmates vanish, and metal detectors greet him every morning like a warning. Education feels distant when survival demands focus on the walk home. The neighborhood has its own economy, operating in plain sight yet never acknowledged. Older boys lean against bodegas, pockets heavy, confidence heavier, watching everything. They know his name before he knows theirs. Gangs here are not born overnight, but inherited like folklore. Their colors, hand signs, and rivalries are etched into walls and memories, passed down through generations of loss. To a child searching for identity, they feel ancient and inevitable. He learns early that age is not protection but currency. Being 14 means lighter sentences, faster forgiveness, and invisibility to a system already overwhelmed. On the street, that makes him valuable. The first approach is casual, almost friendly. A nod, a joke, a small favor that feels harmless enough to say yes to. No contracts are signed, but something binds him all the same. Psychologically, the pull is powerful and precise. The gang offers what institutions failed to deliver: belonging, recognition, and a sense of purpose. For a boy raised in instability, loyalty feels like love. New York's history looms quietly in the background, shaped by decades of segregation, disinvestment, and policy failure. Entire neighborhoods were left to police themselves, and gangs filled the vacuum. What looks like choice is often momentum. By the end of the summer, he is no longer just a kid on the block. He is being watched, tested, slowly absorbed into something larger and darker than himself. The city keeps moving, and he moves with it, one step closer to the edge. By the time fall arrives, the city already knows him, even if it pretends not to. Faces on the block start nodding with recognition, and doors that once felt closed now stay slightly open. This is how usefulness begins in the gang economy. At first, the tasks are small and deliberately forgettable. Carry this bag, watch that corner, deliver a message, and say nothing else. Each job is framed as a favor, but favors quickly turn into expectations. Cash appears faster than he has ever known it. Crumpled bills slide into his palm, and suddenly he can contribute at home without explaining how. The money buys silence as much as it buys respect. With money comes protection, or at least the illusion of it. Walking through the neighborhood feels different when older members flank him without saying a word. Fear, he learns, can be borrowed. The gang operates like a business disguised as a family. There are rules, hierarchies, and punishments enforced quietly and without debate. Obedience is rewarded, hesitation remembered. Older members test him constantly, watching how he reacts under pressure. They push boundaries with threats, jokes, and sudden changes in tone. Loyalty is measured not by words, but by how quickly he adapts. Street psychology plays its role with precision. Praise is rare but powerful, delivered just often enough to keep him chasing it. Shame is public, corrective, and unforgettable. Law enforcement becomes a background presence rather than a deterrent. Police cars roll past, officers stare through him, and nothing happens. He learns that minors are shields, not priorities. Initiation is never formal, but it is deeply real. One night, he is asked to do something that cannot be undone. When he does it, the line between observer and participant disappears. Violence is introduced carefully, almost academically. He is taught when to use it, how much is enough, and when to walk away. Each lesson is framed as survival, never cruelty. Prison stories circulate like warnings and myths combined. Older members speak of Rikers and upstate facilities as places of transformation, not punishment. In these stories, incarceration hardens you or erases you. By the time winter settles in, he is no longer pretending. The gang depends on him, and he depends on the gang even more. What began as help has become identity, and stepping away now feels impossible. Power arrives quietly, disguised as confidence. His walk changes, his voice steadies, and people his age stop meeting his eyes. On these streets, perception is currency, and he is suddenly rich. Money flows more regularly now, folded tight and counted fast. New sneakers, a fresh jacket, small gifts for home that raise no questions. Each purchase reinforces the lie that this life is sustainable. Within the gang, his role expands beyond errands. He is trusted with inventory, locations, and faces that matter. Trust feels like promotion, but it is really exposure. Fentanyl enters the story without ceremony. It is cheaper than heroin, stronger than anyone admits, and everywhere all at once. The older members talk about profit margins, not body counts. He watches how the drug reshapes the block. Customers stop looking human and start looking urgent, desperate, hollow. The line between business and death blurs, but nobody pauses. Status grows alongside risk. His name carries weight now, whispered by kids who want in and rivals who want distance. Fear follows him like a shadow that feels flattering at first. The gang teaches him control is everything. Control over territory, over product, over emotion when violence becomes necessary. Losing control is weakness, and weakness is punished. To cope with pressure, he experiments with the same substances he helps move. It starts small, framed as relief, a way to sleep or stay calm. Nobody warns him because nobody stopped themselves either. Addiction does not announce itself as collapse. It arrives as routine, as something manageable, something he believes he can quit any time. Power convinces him rules do not apply. Law enforcement pressure increases, but so does arrogance. He learns patrol schedules, blind spots, and which officers look bored rather than angry. The city becomes a chessboard, and he believes he is thinking several moves ahead. Prison influence creeps in through phone calls and visits. Older members fresh out of jail bring new tactics, colder attitudes, and deeper paranoia. Survival lessons replace any remaining traces of childhood. Internally, fractures begin to show. Jealousy brews among peers who feel overlooked or threatened. Power creates enemies faster than it creates allies. By now, leaving feels unthinkable. Too many people know his face, his name, his habits. The power he chased has wrapped around him, tightening slowly, and he mistakes the pressure for strength. The streets begin to feel smaller, even though the city never changes. Every corner holds memory, threat, or unfinished business. Paranoia replaces confidence, and sleep becomes optional. Rival crews start testing boundaries with subtle disrespect. A stare held too long, a rumor passed too loud, a customer approached on the wrong block. In this world, small signals demand violent answers. Violence escalates quickly and without warning. Fights turn into stabbings, stabbings into gunfire, and silence becomes strategy. Each incident tightens the atmosphere, like a sealed room. Police presence increases, not as protection, but as pressure. Raids hit nearby buildings, unmarked cars idle for hours, and familiar faces disappear overnight. Every knock sounds like it could be the last one before arrest. Inside the gang, trust begins to rot. Someone is always suspected of talking, stealing, or plotting. Loyalty turns fragile when fear becomes constant. Fentanyl tightens its grip during this chaos. What started as occasional use becomes necessary just to function. Withdrawal feels like punishment. and the drug feels like mercy. He watches friends overdose in bathrooms, stairwells, and parked cars. Some survive, shaken and ashamed, while others do not wake up. Death becomes common enough to feel procedural. The gang's response to loss is efficiency, not grief. Product is replaced, corners are reassigned, and names stop being spoken. Mourning is considered weakness. Psychologically, the pressure fractures him. The drug dulls fear but amplifies despair, trapping him in cycles of relief and regret. Every promise to quit collapses by morning. Violence no longer feels controlled. It erupts impulsively, fueled by drugs and exhaustion. Each act leaves behind consequences that cannot be undone. Law enforcement closes in with precision. Informants surface, charges stack, and juvenile status stops offering real protection. The system he once slipped through begins to grip tightly. Prison influence becomes immediate and unavoidable. Older members disappear inside and send messages back, colder and angrier than before. Incarceration is no longer a story, but an approaching reality. At home, distance grows unbearable. His family senses something wrong but cannot reach him. Silence replaces conversation, and fear replaces hope. The streets that once gave him identity now feel hostile. He is trapped between enemies outside and suspicion within. There is no neutral ground left. Every decision feels fatal in its own way. Staying means destruction. Leaving means retaliation. The illusion of choice disappears completely. This chapter ends without resolution because his life has none. Conflict has consumed every space he occupies. The streets are done teaching, and they are ready to collect. The fall does not arrive dramatically. It arrives quietly and all at once. One mistake stacks on another, and suddenly the weight becomes impossible to carry. For him, the end begins on an ordinary night that feels no different until it does. Police lights cut through the darkness, turning brick walls blue and red. Hands are forced behind his back as voices shout commands he barely hears. Juvenile or not, the system finally decides to notice him. Processing strips away every illusion he once had. His clothes are replaced, his name becomes a number, and time loses its meaning. The power he thought he held dissolves under fluorescent lights. Detention introduces a different kind of violence. Fights break out over nothing. Respect is demanded instantly, and weakness is hunted. Survival now depends on silence, posture, and reputation. Inside, older inmates recognize him immediately. They know the streets he came from, the gang he ran with, and the mistakes that landed him here. Prison does not rehabilitate him. It finishes the transformation. Outside, the gang barely pauses. His spot is filled, his responsibilities redistributed, and his absence becomes irrelevant. Loyalty, he learns too late, was always conditional. Fentanyl continues to claim people he knows. News filters in slowly through rumors and whispered conversations. Some die free, others die inside, and none of it changes the operation. When he is released, the streets feel colder than before. Familiar corners no longer welcome him, and suspicion follows every step. Freedom comes without safety. Addiction follows him home, patient and relentless. The drug no longer brings relief, only necessity. Each day becomes a negotiation between pain and survival. His family sees the damage clearly now. The boy they knew is gone, replaced by someone guarded, hollow, and exhausted. Love remains, but trust struggles to breathe. Violence waits for him on the outside, just as it did inside. Old enemies remember, new ones do not care, and the gang offers no protection. He exists in a dangerous in-between. Some endings come fast, through overdoses or bullets. Others stretch out slowly, through repeated arrests and deteriorating health. Either way, the outcome rarely changes. The city keeps moving as it always has. Another kid watches from the corner, studying the same streets. The machine does not stop for casualties. The story does not end with him. it widens. His absence leaves behind quiet rooms, unanswered phones, and a neighborhood that barely pauses. In New York City, loss blends into the background noise. Murals appear on brick walls where his name is written in bright colors. Candles burn for a few nights. Photos circulate online, and then attention drifts elsewhere. Memory fades faster than consequence. His family carries the weight in private. Parents replay moments they missed. Siblings inherit fear instead of guidance. And guilt settles in places words cannot reach. Grief becomes a long-term condition. The gang continues operating, adapting without sentiment. New recruits step into the same roles, repeating the same rituals and mistakes. The structure survives because individuals are replaceable. Law enforcement files close and statistics update quietly. His life becomes a data point in reports about youth crime and overdose rates. The system records outcomes, not stories. Fentanyl remains, reshaping neighborhoods with ruthless efficiency. It does not discriminate by age, loyalty, or intention. The drug outlives everyone involved. Historically, this cycle is familiar to the city. Decades of underinvestment, mass incarceration, and fractured communities repeat themselves with new faces. The geography changes slightly, but the pattern does not. Some kids hear his story and feel fear for a moment. Others see only the money, the reputation, and the temporary power. Warnings compete poorly against hunger and neglect. He becomes a lesson no one officially teaches. Schools, courts, and streets all share responsibility, but none claim ownership. The silence between institutions is where children fall. In the end, the city did not just lose a boy. It revealed how easily it allows them to disappear.